The silence before the storm. The night was quiet, but inside Keanu Reeves's heart there was no peace. People often saw him as calm, humble, and always gentle with the world. To millions, he was the man who carried kindness like a shield and respect like a crown. But even the kindest souls are human. Even the most peaceful hearts carry storms. And tonight, the storm was inside him, building in silence. For years, Keanu had shared his life with Alexandra Grant, an artist who had stood beside him not just in fame, but in the quiet spaces in between. Their bond was built not on glamour, but on simplicity. She understood his scars, his losses, his unspoken pain. Together, they had found comfort in a world that often demanded too much. To the outside world, they seemed unshakable. Two people who had learned how to walk gently through the chaos of fame. But what people never saw were the moments when silence grew too heavy, when unspoken fears built walls between even the closest of hearts. Keanu had always been quiet, choosing humility over confrontation, patience over anger. Yet tonight, something broke through that calm. The fight began not with shouting, but with a question. Alexandra had looked at him across the table, her voice soft but edged with unease.
Keanu, do you ever feel like we've lost something?
Like we're not the same as we used to be. Her words cut deeper than she expected. Keanu froze, his eyes dropping to his hands. He thought of the years they had shared, the laughter, the long walks, the quiet nights where just being near her was enough. But he also thought of the silence he had carried. How often he kept his pain locked away, believing it was kinder to hide it than to burden her with it. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice low. "Sometimes I feel like I failed you. Like I've failed us." Those words shook Alexandra. She leaned forward, her eyes wide with both love and frustration. "Failed me? Keanu, you've never failed me. But sometimes, you shut me out. You disappear into yourself. I try to reach you, but you don't let me in." He closed his eyes, the weight of her truth pressing hard against his chest. She was right. He had lived his whole life building walls, protecting others from his pain. But in doing so, he had also kept them at a distance. "I don't mean to," he whispered. I don't want you to see the broken parts. I don't want you to carry my darkness." Her voice cracked as she replied. "But I want to carry it. That's what love is, Keanu. It's not about only sharing the light. It's about standing in the dark together, too." The room fell silent, heavy with emotions neither of them could control. For years, they had built their relationship on respect, kindness, and understanding. But now the cracks in their silence were too wide to ignore. Alexandra's eyes filled with tears as she looked at him, not with anger, but with heartbreak. "Do you even trust me enough to let me see all of you?" she asked softly. The question burned inside him. Trust had always been hard for him. Trusting the world, trusting himself, even trusting love. He wanted to say yes, but the words stuck in his throat. And in that silence, the fight began. Not with cruelty, not with harsh words, but with pain too deep to ignore. Alexandra stood, her voice trembling. "Keanu, I love you. But love can't survive on silence. I need more than half of you. I need all of you." He rose too, his heart breaking at her words. He wanted to reach for her, to tell her she was everything he never thought he deserved. But his fear of failing, his fear of showing his scars, held him back. For the first time in years, they stood apart, their bond trembling under the weight of truths long buried. Outside, the night remained still, but inside, the storm had begun. Cracks in the bond. The next morning, sunlight poured through the windows, but it did nothing to warm the chill that lingered between Keanu and Alexandra. The silence from the night before stretched into the day, heavy and unspoken. Keanu sat at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee untouched in his hands, while Alexandra moved quietly around the room, her eyes avoiding his. Every sound felt louder, the clink of a spoon against a cup, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the floor beneath her steps. Both of them wanted to speak, but neither knew how to begin. Sometimes the hardest words are not the cruel ones, but the ones that carry the truth you've hidden for years. Keanu finally broke the silence, his voice low and uncertain. "Alexandra, I don't want us to drift like this. But I don't know how to change what I've always been." She stopped in her tracks, her back to him. Her shoulders trembled before she turned, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "You don't see it, do you? I don't want you to change who you are. I love your quiet, your kindness, your patience. But what hurts me is when you disappear behind it. When you lock me out, I feel like I'm standing next to a man I can't reach." Her words struck him deeply. He had built his life on resilience, on surviving loss and pain with silence. but he had never realized how that silence could wound the very people he wanted to protect. He set his coffee down, his hands trembling slightly. "I've lost so much in my life," he admitted. "People I loved, moments I'll never get back. I thought if I kept the pain inside, I could keep the people around me safe. I didn't want to drag you into that darkness. But maybe I've been dragging you into another kind of darkness all along." Tears slipped down Alexandra's cheeks as she listened. She walked closer, sitting across from him. "You don't have to carry it alone, Keanu. I want to be the one who sees all of you. The broken pieces, the fears, the nights when the weight feels too heavy. Love isn't about protecting each other from the truth. It's about surviving the truth together." His eyes met hers, and for a moment the wall between them seemed to tremble, but fear was still there, strong and unrelenting. "What if I fail you?" he whispered. "What if my darkness pushes you away?" She reached for his hand, holding it tightly. "Then let me decide that. Don't make the choice for me. Don't silence me the way you've silenced yourself. Let me stand beside you." His heart pounded, torn between the instinct to protect her and the longing to finally let someone fully in. Before he could answer, her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it and her face changed. Concern. Unease. "Who is it?" Keanu asked, sensing the shift immediately. She hesitated before answering. "It's a message from someone I haven't heard from in years. Someone who once tried to come between us when we first started seeing each other." Keanu's chest tightened. "What do they want?" She looked at him with worry in her eyes. "They said they know things about us. And if we don't face it, they'll make sure the world hears." The words hung in the air like a blade. Suddenly, their private struggles were no longer just about the two of them. Shadows from the past were reaching into their present, threatening to break what was already fragile. Keanu clenched his jaw, the storm inside him growing fiercer. For years he had fought his battles quietly, avoiding conflict, avoiding exposure. But this was different. This was not just about him. It was about Alexandra, about the life they had built, and about the truth they had both been too afraid to face. He took a deep breath, his eyes steady on hers. "Then maybe it's time," he said quietly. "Time to stop running from the past. Time to face it together." The shadow returns. The message stayed on Alexandra's phone, glowing like a warning neither of them could ignore. Keanu stared at it, his jaw tight, his heart heavy. All his life he had avoided public fights, avoided drama, choosing humility over confrontation. But now, this was not only about him. This was about the woman he loved, about the life they had built together, and about the fragile bond that had already been tested by silence. Alexandra set the phone down slowly, her hands shaking. "It feels like the past doesn't want to let us go," she whispered. "Why now? After all these years, why now?" Keanu rubbed his face with both hands, leaning back in his chair. "Because people don't forget when they think they still have power. Some people wait for the right moment to break you. Maybe they saw what we're going through. Maybe they sensed the cracks." His words stung because there was truth in them. They had been struggling, and maybe someone had noticed. Alexandra lowered her gaze, guilt filling her chest. "Is this my fault?" she asked softly. "If I hadn't asked that question last night, if I hadn't pushed..." He stopped her quickly, leaning forward, his voice steady. "No, this isn't your fault. Asking for honesty isn't wrong. It's what we should have been doing all along. If there are cracks, they're mine too. Silence created them, not your questions." She looked at him, her eyes filled with tears. "But what if this shadow from the past is stronger than us? What if it destroys what we're trying to rebuild?" Keanu's chest tightened. He had asked himself that same question all night, but he couldn't let fear win. "Then we face it together," he said firmly. "We've spent too long hiding from truths, both ours and theirs. Maybe this is the test we need." Just as his words settled in the air, Alexandra's phone buzzed again. Another message. This time the words were sharper. "You think the world sees you as perfect. But I know what you're hiding. If you don't respond, I'll make sure everyone else does." Keanu felt a surge of anger. He rarely let himself get angry, but something about this message burned deep. He grabbed the phone, his hands shaking. "This ends now," he muttered. Alexandra reached for his arm. "Keanu, wait. Don't let them pull you into this. You've always been calm. That's who you are." He looked at her, his eyes heavy with pain. But maybe being silent all the time is what got us here. Maybe by staying quiet, I let people think they could walk into our lives and break us apart. Maybe it's time I fight for us, not with silence, but with truth. Alexandra's heart pounded at his words. She had never seen this side of him before, still gentle, but burning with a strength that had always been hidden behind humility. The day passed slowly, filled with unease. Every sound of the phone made their hearts race. Every silence between them carried the weight of unspoken fears. But beneath it all, something new began to grow. For the first time in years, Keanu wasn't running from conflict. He was standing in it, ready to protect what mattered. That evening, as the sun set, Alexandra sat by the window, her mind restless. "Do you ever think," she asked softly, "that the world will never let us be just normal, just two people who love each other?" Keanu walked over, standing beside her. He placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice calm but strong. "Maybe the world will always watch. But what they see doesn't matter. What matters is what we hold on to when the cameras are gone, when the noise fades. And I want to hold on to you." Her tears spilled at those words. She leaned against him, her body trembling but her heart steadying for the first time all day. But as the night deepened, a new message came. This time, it wasn't just a threat. It was a location. "Meet me tomorrow night. If you don't, the truth goes public." Keanu and Alexandra stared at the phone, the silence between them sharp as a blade. This wasn't just a shadow anymore. This was a fight they could no longer avoid. The meeting place, the message on Alexandra's phone stayed like a shadow neither of them could escape. "Meet me tomorrow night. If you don't, the truth goes public." Those words repeated in Keanu's mind long after the phone had gone silent. He sat awake that night, staring at the ceiling, his thoughts heavy with memories of the past and fears for the future. Keanu had always chosen humility over confrontation. In his world, silence had been his defense. But now, silence was no longer enough. The thought of Alexandra being dragged through a storm of lies and half-truths filled him with something he rarely allowed himself to feel: anger. The next day was long. Alexandra moved through the house quietly, her face pale, her body tense. She tried to focus on small things, watering the plants, tidying books, making tea, but every task was broken by glances at her phone, waiting for another message that never came. By late afternoon, Keanu finally spoke. "We have to go," he said softly but firmly. She looked up, her eyes wide. "You mean to meet them?" He nodded. "If we stay away, they'll only have more power. If we face them, maybe we can take that power back. But we do it together. Not you alone, not me alone. Together." Her chest tightened, fear pulling at her. What if it's worse than we think? What if they try to tear us apart? Keanu walked over, kneeling in front of her, his hands holding hers. Then we show them something stronger than fear. We show them that no one can break what's real. His words gave her courage. She nodded, though her hands still trembled. As night fell, they drove together, the city lights blurring past the car windows. The address in the message led them to an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. The place looked forgotten, rust on the gates, broken windows, silence that pressed hard against the night air. Alexandra hesitated as they stepped out of the car. "Keanu, are you sure?" He squeezed her hand. "I've never been more sure." Inside the warehouse, the air was cold and smelled of dust. Dim light filtered through cracks in the walls, casting long shadows on the concrete floor. Every step echoed, making the space feel endless. And then from the far corner a figure stepped forward. It was him, the man from Alexandra's past. Older now, but his eyes carried the same arrogance, the same bitterness that had once tried to come between them. He smirked as he saw them together. "Well," he said slowly, his voice dripping with mockery, "the perfect couple finally arrives. I wondered if you'd have the courage." Keanu said nothing at first. He stood still, his presence calm but firm, his hand never leaving Alexandra's. The man continued, his words sharp. You think the world sees you as untouchable, Keanu. The kind man, the humble star, the perfect partner. But I know the cracks. I know what you hide. And if you don't want me to tell the world, you'll listen to what I have to say. Alexandra's voice broke through the tension. This isn't about the world. This is about you, still trying to control something you lost a long time ago. You don't have power over me anymore. The man's face darkened, but Keanu stepped forward then, his voice steady. She's right. You can dig up the past, twist it, shout it to anyone who will listen. But it won't change the truth. The truth is, she doesn't belong to you. She never did. She belongs only to herself, and she chooses who to stand beside. And tonight she's standing with me. The warehouse filled with silence. The man's smirk faltered, his arrogance cracking for the first time. But then his eyes narrowed. You think words will stop me? The world eats stories like this. They'll listen to me before they'll believe you. Keanu's gaze didn't waver. Maybe. But the world also sees through lies when truth stands strong. You can try to shout louder, but we'll keep standing together. And the truth of who we are will be stronger than your noise. Alexandra's hand tightened around his. In that moment, she felt the walls of fear inside her finally begin to fall. The man stared at them for a long time, his face twisted with frustration. Then, without another word, he turned and disappeared. Into the shadows of the warehouse, his footsteps fading into the night. Keanu and Alexandra stood in silence, the weight of the moment pressing on them. The fight wasn't over. They knew this man would not vanish so easily. But for the first time, they had faced him not as two people divided by silence, but as one. The fallout, the night air outside the warehouse was cold, but it felt lighter than the silence that had lived inside Keanu and Alexandra for weeks. They walked back to the car hand in hand, their steps steady, their breaths uneven. Neither of them spoke at first. The confrontation was over, but the weight of it still clung to their hearts. As they drove through the city streets, Alexandra stared out the window, her reflection in the glass showing a face torn between relief and fear. Do you think it's over? She asked softly, almost afraid of the answer. Keanu kept his eyes on the road, his voice calm but heavy. People like him don't give up that easily. He wanted control, and when control slips away, some people fight harder to take it back. But it doesn't matter what he does. What matters is how we face it. She turned to him, her eyes wet with tears. I don't want to live in fear anymore. I don't want to wake up every morning wondering if today will be the day the world hears lies about us. I just want peace. His hand left the steering wheel for a moment, finding hers. Then we'll fight for peace. Not with anger, not with hate, but with truth. The world doesn't need to see perfection, Alexandra. They need to see us as we are, flawed, human, still choosing to stand together. The next morning, the storm arrived. Headlines filled the internet. Whispers grew into noise. The man from Alexandra's past had spoken publicly, spreading stories twisted with bitterness. Some were half-truths, others outright lies. Photos from years ago resurfaced, painted with false meanings. The world that had once admired their quiet bond now buzzed with questions. Alexandra sat on the couch scrolling through articles, her chest tightening with every word. Look at this, she said, her voice shaking. They're already asking if we're breaking apart. They're saying you deserve someone else. They're saying I held you back. Keanu sat beside her, his face calm though his heart ached. He gently took the phone from her hands and set it aside. Don't let their noise live inside you. They don't know us. They don't know what we've carried, what we've survived. They see only shadows, not the light we've built together. She looked at him, her tears falling freely now. But what if their words start to feel stronger than ours? What if the world believes them more than they believe us? His voice was steady, filled with quiet strength. Then we show the world something they can't twist, our truth. Not through arguments, not through shouting back, but through how we live, through how we hold each other. Even when everything else is against us, that's what will speak louder than lies. Days turned into a blur. Reporters gathered outside, cameras flashed, questions were shouted from sidewalks. Friends called with concern. Strangers wrote letters of support and doubt alike. The pressure was unrelenting. But in the middle of the storm, Keanu and Alexandra found moments that reminded them of who they were. Simple dinners at home, quiet walks at night, long talks that stretched until dawn. Moments where they were not fighting the world, only holding each other. Yet even in those moments, the tension remained. Alexandra often woke in the night, her body trembling with fear. Keanu would pull her close, whispering, "You're safe. I'm here." But he knew safety was more than words. It was something they would have to fight for every day. One evening, as they sat together, Alexandra spoke softly. "Do you ever wish you had stayed silent? That maybe if you hadn't spoken your truth to me, we wouldn't be here now under all this fire?" His eyes softened and he shook his head. "No. Silence is what almost broke us before. Silence gave others the chance to fill our story with lies. I'll never regret speaking. Even if the world turns against us, at least you'll always know what's real between us." Her chest tightened at his words. She reached for his hand, squeezing it tightly. "Then I'll stand with you, no matter how loud the storm gets." Outside, the noise of the world grew louder, but inside their hearts, a quiet resolve began to grow. They had survived the fight with each other. Now they had to survive the fight with the world. Breaking the silence of the world, the storm outside grew heavier with each passing day. Cameras followed them everywhere. Headlines twisted their story, and strangers on the internet argued about their lives as if they owned the truth. Keanu and Alexandra tried to hold on to quiet moments, but the noise outside their walls seemed endless. Keanu sat one evening in the dim light of their living room. Alexandra curled beside him. She looked exhausted, her eyes tired from reading too much, her heart tired from carrying too much. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, whispering, "We can't live like this forever. We have to take back the story. We have to speak." She looked at him, her voice trembling. "But the world isn't kind, Keanu. Once we open ourselves, we can't take it back. They'll analyze every word, every gesture." He nodded slowly. "Maybe, but we can't let someone else define who we are. We've spent too long in silence. This time we speak not just to each other, but to everyone. Not because we owe them our truth, but because we refuse to let lies be louder than love." The next day, they agreed to sit for an interview. Not a glamorous stage, not a crowd of flashing cameras. Just one quiet room, one trusted voice asking questions, and their story told simply, honestly. When the camera light blinked on, Alexandra's hands shook. Keanu reached over, taking her hand in his, steady and firm. "We're in this together," he whispered. The interviewer asked the first question, gentle but sharp. "There have been many rumors about your relationship. What do you want the world to know?" Keanu took a deep breath, his voice calm, steady, carrying the weight of years. "I want people to know that silence can destroy as much as lies. For too long, I believed hiding my pain was strength. I believed not speaking was protection. But what I learned is that silence builds walls even between people who love each other. Alexandra and I have faced those walls. We've faced storms from outside and storms from within. And through it all, the truth is simple. We stand together." Alexandra's voice followed, her eyes filled with tears. "People will believe what they want. Some will believe lies. Some will believe truth. But what matters is that we believe in each other. We've made mistakes, we've been afraid, we've doubted ourselves. But we choose every day to stand beside each other, even when it's hard. That's what love really is." The room was quiet after they finished. No grand speeches, no dramatic promises, only honesty. Only the raw truth of two people who had chosen to fight not against each other, but for each other. When the interview aired, the world reacted in ways neither of them expected. Some voices were cruel, twisting their words, mocking their openness. But many others were moved. Messages poured in. Letters from strangers who saw their own struggles in their story. Couples who said they felt less alone. People who thanked them for showing that even love marked by scars can still be beautiful. And for the first time in weeks, Keanu and Alexandra felt peace. Not because the world was silent, it never truly would be, but because they no longer feared its noise. They had spoken, and nothing could take that back. That night, as they sat together on the balcony, the city lights glowing softly below, Alexandra leaned against him, whispering, "Do you regret it?" He kissed the top of her head gently, his voice calm. "No, because the truth will always outlive the noise. And as long as we keep choosing each other, we'll outlive it too." The silence that followed was not heavy, not filled with fear. It was the silence of peace, of healing, of two souls who had walked through storms and found their way back to each other.